Yes.
I guess that's why we're here.
It is very, very difficult. And it's related to I think, the great challenge that all of us face, that we are embedded in particular traditions, and we all live in the hope that there are particular things that are going to turn out to be true. So we do. We have different convictions. We have different convictions, different beliefs, and maybe I expect that on the last day, all of us are going to be surprised. The question is whether some people are going to be more surprised than others. But is it possible to build in enough humility to say even just that on the last day we are all going to be surprised? So that one can, on the one hand, be committed to one's particular faith tradition. I mean, I'm a Lutheran clergyman. I took ordination vows. I'm supposed to teach and preach according to the Book of Concord. There's a very definite body of doctrine that I have formally subscribed to. But at the same time, can we live with that with enough humility that we wouldn't describe it as God taking sides? That's a huge challenge, so I'm looking forward to what you'll tell us tomorrow. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, my name is Victoria, and I grew up Catholic, but I'm now Episcopalian. So, following your discussion, I was thinking about all those people who suffered in the Dialog and other kinds of things. There was this movie that I saw, PBS. It was a group of people in the Holocaust. It's a group of men who were debating about where God was.
Yeah.
Where is God when you're suffering?
Yeah.
But anyway, in the end, the debate, there's doctors in there, philosophers and plumbers, whatever, all kinds of men in there. And it was interesting. I forgot the name of the movie, but it was those people that were debating, and the end was that in those moments when you know you might die because of the situation and you're suffering, wouldn't you choose that God is on your side?
I'm wondering if we can rephrase that. I'm struggling with this expression, God is on my side. Can I say that God is for me? Rather than God taking sides, God is for me. And that doesn't exclude God being for others as well.
Yeah, it was a puzzle for me to understand.
Yeah.
It was a puzzle. I mean, if they're suffering.
Well, and suffering is a puzzle. It's a puzzle for human beings. We believe that God is good and loving. We believe that God ultimately has control. And we see the terrible suffering that takes place. And how do we hold those three things together?
Maybe you can say God is with us. Instead of saying that God is on our side, we can say God is with us even here now.
That's certainly a very Christian thing to say. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes, sir.
My name is Wolf, and I just said there has to be one warning in that. God is with us. Because that was the motto of the German army, and it was on all the bells. God is with us. So again, you cannot get too exclusive.
Yeah, and well, it's a question. What does it mean? Does it mean God? Does that mean God is on our side as opposed to that side? Yeah.
Semantics, but very important.
But important, yeah.
We are a symbolic creation. And so we operate on a symbolic basis, and it's our language, that's the symbol.
Yeah, thank you. See a question?
I will talk from the perspective of like a simple person, because I'm originally from Iraq, and in Iraq, Muslim and Christian lived together for a long, long time ago. So we don't have an issue of us and them.
Yeah.
So my question is those kind of issues and debate happen after like 9/11? So people keep thinking about other words like Muslim and Christian, and also I have another like. I think that the problem is not like the diversity. There's Muslims and Christians, there is conflict between them. I think we have to study another issue that involved is that there's an interest for power. Like they are greedy, they have interest, they want to counter the states because of the resources, and they've been used the differences
Sure.
of religions as excuse.
Sure.
Because let me tell you a story. I work as a caseworker in YMCA International Services. I deal with a refugee who came from Iraq. So recently, 2 weeks ago, I had a Muslim guy who came from Iraq. And the family who hosts him, he has a relative. His aunt is living here in Houston. But the family who hosts the single guy, Christian family. I mean, he stayed with them. He lived with them, he stayed with them, they feed him, they housed him. It was quite amazing. And they came from Iraq. Like Iraq, even the problem nowadays, not between Muslim and Christian, between like two section parts, Shiis and Sunnis within the same religions, and we don't have this problem like a long time ago. So I think when we study, it's good to know like it seems that it's deep, kind of research a long time ago, but it's good to know that I think we don't have any kind of conflict between each other. There is more in common, and it's quite bad that people have been using the differences for their interests.
Yeah, thank you for the testimony. The history is a complicated one. And so that on the one hand, you can find instances of this process of othering, of making an us over against them. That goes way, way, way back. And you can find, as I said in the paper, you can find examples just all over the place. Perhaps what doesn't come so often into the texts is all of those examples that you know from Iraq, that I know from Egypt, for example, where you simply have Christian families and Muslim families, living side by side and sharing communities and visiting each other on each other's feasts and taking care of each other. The last neighborhood that I lived in Cairo was a mixed Christian and Muslim neighborhood. When our son would go out into the street to play football, his two playmates there were named George and Muhammad. Clearly George, named for the dragon-slaying saint of Christianity, and Muhammad named for the prophet. And in that neighborhood, there was a mosque and a church right across the street from each other. So, we heard the call to prayer and we heard church bells, and this was the way it was. Those sorts of experiences don't always make it into the kinds of texts, that historians read, that I read. So you have these different histories, and certainly there are particular places and particular times in history when you have had religiously diverse societies which have been just enormously, enormously fruitful. And I think Iraq, for example, in the early Abbasid period is one example of that, in the way that Christians and Muslims and Jews participated together in the great enterprise of creating Arabic philosophy. Or then Spain, Al-Andalus, provides again many examples of this very fruitful collaboration between peoples. And then thank you for your other point that so often, when there is conflict, and there is conflict that is labeled religious conflict, we have to stop a minute and say, well, is it really religious? You know, what's really going on here? You know, what are the economic issues? What are the political issues? Which land are they fighting over? Which resources are they fighting over? And so on. Because so often what you have are conflicts that have their roots in other things, which then take on this religious character, or religious language can even be exploited then in order to motivate people in this struggle, which is perhaps primarily a political or an economic struggle. So thank you for that point. Yes, sir?
Okay, I was going to mention regarding the discussion